I remember during one of my lessons last year, I saw a student who wasn't feeling so well. So I asked, "Are you feeling well? Are you okay?" And he said, "Yes, yes, I'm fine. I'm just constipated." And he said, "What? What does it mean?" Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rida Pasha.
And I'm Samuele Moscardo, and this is another episode of Cellini Podcast. And here with us we have our first guest, teacher Scarsi.
Good afternoon, everybody. Would you mind telling us something about your job and what do you do here at the Cellini Institute? Yes, of course. Here at Cellini, I'm teaching English. So I've been teaching English here for a few months, just from October. But I really enjoy this place, also the students. So I'm very happy here. So something about me, something about why I decided that. Yes, of course. So actually, what could I say? I will define myself as a kind of outgoing person, very generous and quite determined. I think that determination is one of my best qualities because I think that you have to be determined to reach your goals in life, your dreams. Okay, it's important. Yes, right. Yes. So I decided to study languages from the very first moment when I was at the primary school. Yes. Yes, because I was inspired by my teacher, my English teacher, because she was very enthusiastic about the language and about teaching the language. So especially was inspired by the sound of the language. I really liked how English sounds. Yes. English, yes, I tend to have more British pronunciation, but of course, then with the passing of the time, you start to be more familiar with other pronunciations. So then I decided to study in a language-focused high school. So I attended the Liceo Linguistico, and I studied German, French, and English. But then I decided to change. So I decided to attend the university, the language university in Pavia. But I studied Spanish, German, and English, so 3 languages. I ended that course and I said, I just want to dedicate to my first love, so English. And I decided to take my master's degree in English linguistics, which is something different from simply studying the literature of language, because I mainly focused on how the language changes according to the speakers, to the context, and different varieties of the language. So I'm quite more focused on the language. So I try to tell students, try to use English as a mean, as a tool, not just as a subject. So as a tool to be communicated with everyone in the class. Yeah, of course. It's important to communicate with everyone. So which day we choose to register our episode in only English? Why do you think that can be helpful? I think that is very helpful for all of us, actually, not only for students, because we need to be exposed to the language. You are a generation that tend to be very exposed to the language, especially what we call the extramural English, which means English outside the classroom walls. Okay, so which means that you have a specific access to the language outside school. So you normally, I don't know, watch TV series or
It's more normalized.
yes, yes, and it's more informal too, because of course we are more informal than what we normally like speak or tend to have a conversation at school. Okay, so it's very useful because you have English in context, which we say.
What do you think is the best fields where English can be helpful to learn?
Okay, so of course we have no doubts that English is useful for everyone and everywhere, yes. But this is something I would say of your generation, because now you are realizing how important it is to know the language without considering what we will do in the future, because you can study, you can attend a university, so you will need it in academic field. You know that research, all the speeches are done in English, okay?
but also in the job field. It could be, I don't know, technology, information. It could be also some kind of marketing fields, business. It could be anything. English is becoming more and more what is called a lingua franca, which means a language used by speakers who don't speak the same language. Okay, so we have different native languages, so we use English to communicate. So it's a job language too, right? When we are in kind of bigger context. But of course, it's also useful in your life. Okay, as private life.
Everyday conversation.
Yes, of course.
Internet right now is very open with globally now.
Yes.
That's the speaking English office.
And you have to know that because otherwise you are out of that.
But about the people, the students,
Mhm.
go to the students part that don't learn English. What do you think is the most funny and interesting way to inspire them to study English?
Yes, it's a very difficult question, but I will try to answer. So first of all, I would say to that students, you have to change your perspective. So try to change your approach to English, which means you don't have to say English just as a subject. So if you don't like studying it in a traditional way at school, you should try to connect it with your hobbies, with what you like.
On a topic.
Yes, because I think it's when you enjoy something, of course, it's easier to understand it and to, of course, learn something. So I try to tell them, change your approach. Then I think it's important to have a step-by-step approach. So you don't have to ask yourself too much.
To develop it into a hobby on everyday life.
Yes. When you have time, you can just, listen to a podcast or watch short movies. Yes, movies. Yes. But I think this is
Subtitles, people.
yes. This is a very big question because subtitles are quite popular. Yes. In English, at least. Yeah. Yes, but it's useful because it's a process. You start listening or a podcast or watching a film in English with Italian subtitles, sometimes then with English
subtitles.
And then,
so you can hear it and learn.
yes.
What would you say to the students who mostly have difficulties on oral tests? What would you help them? What word of advice would you give them?
Okay, so in oral tests, so having some difficulties in the speaking,
The pronunciation.
Yes. Of course, the first thing we need to do as teachers, I think, in general, is to try to be very supportive and create a non-judgmental, environment. So try to be more open to the challenges they are facing in both written, oral, or it depends on the skills. For what concerns oral skills, I would say that it's useful to try to focus on the daily speaking practice because it's useful to try to understand your fluency. Okay, if you're fluent, if you are confident enough. And when you have an oral test, try to test it before at home.
I put myself in front of the mirror and you speak English only.
This is very
see the difference. Yes.
It's fundamental because it's also useful if you record yourself with your mobile phone. It's kind of cringe sometimes, but it's useful because you understand. Okay, I blocked too much time, so I have to repeat. Okay. And so this is one very useful thing. And then, of course, if they have some speaking kind of challenge, they are facing speaking challenges, they could practice with apps or, I don't know, try to join in the communities of speakers. There are a lot of them online, so worldwide groups. Yes, of course, you have to find the right person and try to, but I know people having this connection for many, many years, so it could be also useful. Yes.
Yeah, we can see the difference between when we are in a group chats. We can see that there is a difference between the British accent and the American accent. As you can hear, my accent is American, New Gen Z.
Yes.
What can you
You're
say about the
very
difference? Yes, I am.
Yes, of course. Okay, so I could talk for hours about this distinction, but just to be very, very clear. So first of all, I would say that the main difference is in the vocabulary. There are a lot of words changing from one variety to another. So I don't know, the word lift, elevator, biscuits and cookies are right, of course. This is, and so I don't know, vacation, holiday, all these words. So vocabulary, changing words, but also something related to the spelling. Okay, so there's a simplification of the spelling, color without the U. Okay, yes, vowel. So it changes also in this sense. There are also some changes in pronunciation, of course. When we talk about British English, we refer to the received pronunciation as a standard of pronunciation. So, for example, the English spoken by the BBC or the Queen, now the King, okay? While for the American English, we tend to refer to what is called the General American. Concerning the pronunciation, American is quite marked, okay, because there are some open vowels, like in box. American tends to open those vowels, okay, or the R sound. American English is called a rothic language, which means that the R is stressed in every position it is. So, for example, in British English, you say ka, so the ha isn't pronounced, right? Or is silent, okay? While in American English is car, okay?
Car, silent.
Of course. So it's different. In grammar, there are some minor changes. They tend to simplify it a bit, okay? But the major domains are vocabulary and pronunciation. Yes.
What do you think is the funniest and most curious errors that the Italian students usually do when speaking English? And also, what can we do to help them? Like, what platforms or what, like you were saying, using English on our hobbies, like using subtitles first and then going to directly the English
Version, yes.
the English version. What do you say to them?
Okay, so I would say that the funniest thing that I think one of my favorites is the creation of vocabulary, so of new words. I remember during one of my lessons last year, I saw a student who wasn't feeling so well. So I asked, "Are you feeling well? Are you okay?" And he said, yes, I'm fine. I'm just constipated." And he said, "What? What does it mean?" He wanted to say that he had a flu. Okay, so he was trying to build. This is something very common. So trying to create new words or just
Missing them.
Yes, or leaving a gap using an Italian word when you don't know the English word. Try to use a synonym. You can leave a gap with an Italian word, but it happens. So yes, to try to improve, try to do something every day. Of course, if you want to increase your knowledge and try to increase your different skills. So it could be listening, could be speaking, writing too. You have to expose yourself to the language. So, for example, watch, as we said, films, TV series, but also try to listen to authentic language, like in podcasts and radio, because sometimes it is more difficult to understand the language. So it's trickier, and it's a challenging way to see if you know, okay, if you understand. And it's language put in context. So you can decide which is your favorite podcast. There are a lot of podcasts about, for example, crimes, travel. It depends on your interests, right? So
yeah. A way for me to challenge myself is reading literature English.
Okay.
Right. But
no, it's very difficult
because I have an American accent. I will try to learn new words that are not very spoken in English class.
Yes.
So when you read literature, English books, there are 100 new words in 2 pages. You say, what is this?
But it's very challenging, but also useful, because you go and look for, I don't know, this word on word reference or those kind of.
Yeah. Then you use it on essays a lot. Like,
Yes.
very good to improve it.
Yes.
So, what do you think is more important, to know the language or the culture of?
Big questions today. Okay.
Yeah, deep questions.
Deep questions, of course. I think that it's quite difficult to separate the language from the culture because they are very connected. They are deeply connected. Because if you learn the grammar and the lexicon, so the vocabulary, you can use the language according to the rules, okay, to the grammar. But if you know the culture of a specific language, so it is related to the country where it is spoken normally, you can also try to communicate more appropriately. So using their way of speaking, their way of behaving. So for example, so body language is very important. Try to avoid misunderstandings. Try to understand what is accepted and what is not. And this is something which happens, I think, with the English language. We tend to use it, of course, as a tool. And I am the first to say that you have to use it to try to access to this language as much as possible. But we don't have to forget that it is connected to a culture. So to different countries too, because we don't have just British English or American English, but also different varieties.
Yes, through language you can know other cultures as well.
You have to be open to these new horizons too, and not to be just I want to use the language because I need it. Yes, but if you can reach a high knowledge of the language, you can also be more interested in the culture to know where it was born and who speaks this language.
Also, what we're saying about literature and culture, do you think that reading books can help us understand? We are in Italy, so we don't really have easy way of going to England, America, and places like that. Do you think that reading books can help us in any way understand better the culture of the places that they were written? And also, what is your favorite book?
Okay, so lots of questions. I try to answer all your questions. So first of all, yes, of course, reading books is very important because, as she said, when you read a book, you
to be clear, I read classic books.
I understand. Yes, of course. You can learn a lot. You can pick up a lot of vocabulary, but also grammar structures. Maybe you didn't know before. So it's very useful. And I think that the most useful process is to go and look for the words and the structures you don't know. Okay. So this is the second step. So you read, you try to understand, but then you look for the word. Okay. I think that it is something you can do when you have quite a level of the language, so between B1 and B2 at least, because otherwise it's difficult to understand, of course, classics, because they're written in probably 19th century English. So I don't know, Danier or other. Yes. And to answer to your question, my favorite book, I would like to tell you who is my favorite author, because I don't have a specific favorite book, but I really like James Joyce. I don't know if you yes, maybe it's too soon, but it's an Irish he's an Irish author, and James Joyce. No, you will see. In the 5th year, yes. It's quite interesting because he tries to tell stories of real people living in Ireland.
It's the book of Dubliners.
Yeah, Dubliners. Yes,
It's on my wish list.
yes, yes. Dubliners is one of my favorites because it's based on each character's story, and I really like one of his major figures inside this book. No, not okay. Okay, so I just tell you what are epiphanies. Yes. I think they are very interesting. Joyce describes them as moments in your life when you just stop and you realize yourself from outside. Yes. So you understand, I don't know, you're making a mistake, or you're making a mistake, or you're doing something wrong, right? And you understand it's like a revelation of your life. And I find it like very philosophical, very, yes.
Yes.
And here we are at the moment, the object that tells you. Did you bring any representative object? What is it?
Yes. So I decided to bring with me my passport. Actually, it's just the cover of it because I'm very afraid that I could lose it. But yes, so I decided to bring with me this specific item because I think that each stamp inside my passport tells something about not only the countries that I have visited, but also something about the people I have met. So, and I think that it is something strictly connected to my personality. I really like meeting people, meeting new cultures, try to connect with others, and I'm very empathetic. So I try to learn from others too, try to learn from their experiences. So I think it's connected to who I am.
And if you lose it, what will happen?
Of course, it wouldn't be so nice. But first of all, sorry, I would take just the practical steps to replace it because it's a document and we need to have it. But I think that beyond the fact that it's a document and I need to have it, it wouldn't be just a disaster because all the experiences, some people that I've met would be in my heart. So a new passport would mean a new journey. So it's something new.
Like you use it like a journal, like everything that you have
Yes.
had in your life. That's
Of course.
so good way. These things.
Yes.
So, what travels did you do? What people have you met? If
I like traveling. Yes.
if you like to share,
Of course.
what travel? Where did you went? What did you find? The most shocking thing you've seen?
Yeah, the most okay. So first of all, I traveled not so much as you could think because I just decided to bring this passport because I'm not that old, right? I'm joking, but I could tell you one of my favorite journeys. Okay, so it's when I went to Chester in England. Okay, near Manchester. I spent there 3 weeks in a host family. Yes, it was my first experience going away from my family for the first time. I was, I think, 15 years old.
Young.
Yes, very young. And I left with a group of students, and it was at the beginning quite challenging because you were alone and you had to speak only in English because all my classmates were Spanish, French, coming from all Europe. So I had to speak in English. And the funniest thing was that when I called my parents, I said, "But you were talking in English? Why were you talking in English?" And they said, "No, we are talking in Italian." That was because I had English in my brain.
Yeah.
I was thinking in English. It was something strange, right? And I met a lot of people. I'm still in contact with the family. I went to visit them 2 years ago. And also with the people I have met, Spanish people coming also from Germany. And we would like to try to recreate our group one time. I don't know, maybe in the future.
Reunite.
Yeah, reunited. Yes, of course.
And
this
this
was Cellini Podcast, the place where stories don't end when the bells rings.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to us. We would really like to have you send.
Yes, of course. Thank you a lot for having me here. Bye. Bye.